Hey boys and girls, welcome back to another book and story to share with you all. This story is such a good one. It's called Abe Lincoln, the Boy Who Loved Books. So many of you probably know Abraham Lincoln, President Abraham Lincoln. He was our 16th president. And so this is a story that takes you along the adventure of President Lincoln before he was the man that we know him as he was just a boy growing up that loved books. Let's dive right in. Oh, but before we do, this book is written by Kay Winters and Nancy Carpenter. So Abe Lincoln, the Boy Who Loved Books. Whew. In the wilds of Kentucky, 1809, a boy was born. His mother called him Abraham, his last name Lincoln. His bed was made from corn husks. His covers, skins from bears. His cabin built with logs from towering trees. Abe said his first words in that one-room cabin, took his first steps on that hard dirt floor. A wood fire chased the cold and cooked corn pone. The door swung open, shut on a leather hinges. A tiny window looked out on his world. There's a little baby Lincoln. When he was 2, his folks packed their few goods, moved Abe and his sister Sarah to Knob Creek. The Cumberland Trail ran close to their new cabin. Abe saw peddles, pioneers, politicians, traders, slaves pass by. As Abe grew, he talked to the travelers, heard where they'd been, where they were going. He saw the world was wider than his own world. His ideas stretched. His questions rose, his dreams were stirred. At school, he worked with numbers, 1 to 10. He shaped his letters A to Z with a charcoal stick. He wrote them down day in, day out, in school, at home, in dust, in snow, on logs, on wood. The letters cast a magic spell. He loved to learn. You see, he's writing letters and words as he's sweeping, and here he is writing letters and words in this stump. His parents had no schooling, but when day was done, the family sat close by the fire. His mother shared the Bible stories she knew by heart. His father spun yarns, told jokes, and made them laugh. When Abe was 7, his family moved again. The Lincolns set out one December morning, their bits and pieces piled on stout horses. They walked and rode 100 miles to Indiana. They crossed the Ohio River on a makeshift ferry. Abe helped his father hack a trail through forests thick and thin with trees and dangled vines, until at last they came to a land they claimed. No cabin waited at Little Pigeon Creek. Instead, a half-faced camp of branches, twigs, and logs was where they had to stay. One side opened wide open to the wilderness. The family kept the woodpile stacked. The blazing fire scared off wild animals that roamed the woods. Bears growled, wolves howled, panthers screamed. Abe shivered. Dark was a fearsome time. You can see the bears. Look at that. Wow. Then settlers came to help the family raise a home. Now Abe and Sarah had a loft to call their own. Abe loved to climb up to his own sleeping place, but snow and wind blew through the cabin's cracks. The outside crept indoors and iced the walls. Just once, Abe shot a turkey in the woods, but not again. He vowed he would not take the breath from living things. When Abe was 8, he helped his father clear their land. He learned to swing an axe and fell the trees, but he longed to learn from books, go back to school. Do you see him chopping that tree right there? You see it? Look, he chopped the letter A. When Abe turned 9, dark days fell upon him. Milk sickness took his mother to her grave. Abe whittled pegs to be put in her pine coffin, his grief so deep he could not speak her name. A year limped by. His father went to find a wife. He brought back a widow with 3 children, her heart so wide she took in Abe and Sarah as her kin. There she is. And she owned books. She let Abe read when chores were done. Once more, their house of logs became a home. She then sent them to school. Abe wore 2 short buckskins and a raccoon cap. He drew his letters with a turkey buzzard quill. Abraham Lincoln, his hand in pen, he will be good, but God knows when. He learned to add, subtract on planks of wood, but most of all he loved to read, win spelling bees, spin yarns, and tell tales. When school was shut, Abe was hired out to farmers. His father kept the earnings for the family. Abe split rails, dug wells, chopped trees, but all the while he worked, he yearned to learn. To anyone who listened, he'd like to say, the things I want to know are in books. Once rain leaked through the cabin roof and soaked a book he borrowed, and for 3 hot days, Abe pulled stalks of corn in his friend's field to pay him back. See him reading. He's got the book. He's reading in the hole. Reading. He loves to read. When Abe plowed, a book sat in his back pocket. At each row's end, he'd take it out and read. His horse would wait for him to turn the page. The neighbors shook their heads. They called him lazy. They did not understand this bookish boy. Abe knew he must move on, out of the wilderness. Splitting rails and plowing land was not his dream. At 19, he pulled a flatboat down the river, saw people in places beyond backwoods, saw black men, women, and their children bound in chains. A sign above their heads read, auction block. A life for sale, like hatchet, axe, or plow. Abe knew it was unjust,